Hello guys, welcome back for another epic video. Today I will be playing Minecraft, and it is going to be episode 10 of Block Wars. So there have been a few changes, a few things were added, a few civilizations grew a tiny bit, like the Reds did, or Redstone. And the Obsidian have gone from crying obsidian to obsidian. They have had a revolution, and they have conquered some of moss, as well as diamond has conquered some of moss, and they are planning to connect. A few things happened, but today is going to be the day of the Great War. So this is going to be super duper exciting. I'm really proud and happy about what's going to unfold. Of course, the redstone are quickly growing. They're quickly gathering strength, gathering power. You'd love to see it. I love watching the redstone kind of rebuild the old Red Empire. Right now is not about them. It's about the Lapis and their absurd military power. So the Lapis decide to go ahead with the offensive, and they decide to call in 8 units to help with the fight. And they decide to call forward this general and call forward this general. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the Lapis charge. They easily are getting their soldiers out here, pushing in with little to no effort. And it's looking good for them. They have an absurd amount of soldiers, like way too many soldiers. And so they don't really have to worry. They do lose a few troops upon impact, but this honestly isn't that bad. They kind of are just charging. And the moss are horrified. They know they can't really do anything to stop this attack. They just are kind of like going with it. Now, of course, they have lots of troops here because they don't want to be overwhelmed here. And the Lapis are going on the offensive, crushing many moss troops. Of course, they are building more civilian houses because they don't want their civilization to be emptied from the onslaught of the war. But the moss are pretty quickly getting overwhelmed. They aren't being absolutely crushed, but they are being beaten pretty badly. They're losing a lot of troops, obviously. And so they decide to retreat, calling this soldier back, calling this soldier back, calling this soldier, all these soldiers. To fall back to these houses and take shelter. They decide to burn the houses in front of them, which does cause 2 moss soldiers to be killed. Or Lapis, not moss. But this honestly isn't that bad for them. They do lose quite a few houses because of this. Like, the civilians are all dead. So I forgot to incorporate this into my other videos, but it happens like that. They also burn down all of this. They know they're gonna lose the territory, so they're like, why not? You need to not allow the Lapis to take this as cover and to send their soldiers through this area. Oop. And so the moss have kind of been in a state of decline, so they're being pushed back tremendously. The Lapis aren't really using any tactic other than just pushing forward with their troops, which isn't really... It is a tactic, but it's not much of a tactic. You're mostly just relying on base strength. But now the moss soldiers have been cut down even more, and so they decide to retreat to the barracks, a pretty safe option. But they do lose a soldier while retreating, so they can't retreat that much. And then they actually decide to retreat even further to just defend this tiny little area of land. And they decide to burn quite a bit of area. They don't manage to burn all of the houses, but they burn a lot of the military stuff. So that's good. And so the Lapis have kind of charged up. They won't have all of their troops. But they do have quite a bit of soldiers still left from the onslaught. And now they've taken an absurd amount of territory. They do lose the commander, so that's pretty bad, but they can make up for those losses. The Moss pretty quickly lose 2 soldiers. And the Lapis lose quite a few soldiers as well, but then the commanders 1v1 the Moss, of course with aid by a Lapis soldier, so it's not really 1v1, but they decide to send these 3 soldiers out to help bolster their defense lines. They just want to do that. And the Obsidian, now, of course, having their little power area, want to inflict more damage upon the kelp. Now, before that can happen, the moss decide to send 4 soldiers over to save their little area over here. And this actually works. And they push the Lapis back. And so the Lapis have to retreat. And this is very annoying to the Lapis. But they ask for a lot more soldiers. 16 to be exact. I know, it's a massive amount of troops. And so they decide to storm the area. And of course, there's no competition. The moss are quickly overwhelmed. They didn't even have time to build walls, so it's pretty sad for them. They do replenish their population at a fast enough rate that they don't lose that many soldiers from this war, but they lose all of their territory. Now the Lapis have lost quite a few troops, but this doesn't really matter, as now they have the entire area to hold as part of their empire. And now they kind of become what they wanted to become. They've become the world power, the world leader, the superpower of the world. This magnificent empire. But they do realize that they've kind of lost a ton of soldiers. This wasn't really their intention. So they decide to send over seven soldiers and 8 soldiers to help bolster their forces. They still wish they had more soldiers, but they lost a lot of houses, losing how many soldiers that they had lost, so they don't really want to do anything right now. But they've won the war. Now, over here with the Obsidian, well, it's not really a war. It's just complete landslide. Absolute havoc is caused. The Kelp instantly lose. They didn't have any soldiers really there in the first place, so they get crushed. But an interesting thing happens. The Obsidian decide that they're not going to go with the moss, so they destroy a lot of the railroad. kind of burn it until they get near the mountains, and then they kind of leave. And their military decides to expand a little bit more. They just like expanding. And so this is an amazing thing for the Obsidian. They have kind of solidified this area. They haven't entirely, because of course the Lapis had their puppet, the Diamond, but they aren't too worried about that, as the Diamond aren't that powerful and the Lapis aren't, well, they weren't that interested in them. But now the Lapis are kind of turning their gaze towards this area, wondering what they should do. Of course, they know that their puppet cannot fight the Obsidian. Their puppet's nowhere near the Obsidian's power. But they're kind of like, well, eventually we gotta help them out. So they won't do anything to help out the Diamond this episode, other than provide them with building materials to help grow their nation. And so a war takes place, not much of a war, it's kind of just conquering, not much of war, because one side just gets completely demolished. So I'll just say it's the Lapis conquering the Moss and the Obsidian conquering the... Well, it's the war... Okay, whatever. You can decide. And since the Obsidian don't really need this whole trade route thing, they kind of just decide to make this all part of their territory. And so they've conquered this area. The Diamond are basically doing a thing like what the Lapis did. They're just connecting their two areas into one area. And this is honestly pretty smart. And you can also say it's what the Red Empire did all the way back to like episode 3 or episode 2 or something like that. I don't know when it was, but it was quite a while back. And the Diamonds are under like the government influence of the Lapis, so they are a kind of military ruled government. So they want to fight nations all the time, even though they're nowhere capable of fighting a nation. They still want to fight. Of course, the Obsidian are also kind of like this, but they're more of like Spartans. They're like glorious warriors. So Moss are kind of furious, but they can't, again, really do anything. So now we have this area being connected, the Lapis conquering, and then kind of rebuilding. They also decide to wall off a lot of land. And this more people like, because this is a defensive measure taken by the Lapis to help the people instead of just helping the military. And the Lapis, now their military government kind of works, because instead of the normal military government that they used to be, their population can actually, like, have what they want. So they're not they are entirely military, but they aren't really entirely military. Because their population now can finally get something that they want. It's definitely nowhere near democracy, but it's definitely a lot closer, because the military doesn't get everything. And of course, this also opens up a little bit of land for population to grow. But it doesn't open up that much. And the Lapis will actually expand a tiny bit outwards. And so, of course, the Lapis overall have grown quite a bit this episode. Not as much as in other episodes that the Lapis have grown, but still quite a bit. And the Lapis are kind of rebuilding in this area. This area will be grown quite a bit as well. Consisting of slightly more people. And again, this is basically just a safe hazard. Maybe not again. Probably shouldn't say again. But it's a safe hazard for people. And there will be quite a bit of growth made by the redstone towards this area. Of course, not in this area, but wait, let me just get a few more houses down. The reds will... or redstone... keep on saying reds. The redstone... I don't want to make this, like, perfect. I want to make it, like, rigid. The redstone will expand outward towards the lapis. And this is actually the closest that the main area of the reds has ever been towards the lapis. Wait. Yeah, I think it's closest. I don't know. But yeah, it's super close. And this will basically be the end of the 10th episode. Please make sure to like and subscribe and check out Forky NZ's channel. He's amazing. And help me to get to 25 subs. Bye!